Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity. Father, I'd like to just offer up a word of prayer to you and thanksgiving, mostly that I'm grateful that for this nation that you help our founding fathers to create the form of government that we have. Thank you for your input in their endeavors from the beginning of this nation. It's very apparent, Lord, that you were part of their decision-making processes and that they believed that you were as well, too. Father, I'd also like to thank you for our lawmakers and our city council who tirelessly volunteer their time and their efforts to help govern Washougal. I pray that you give them wisdom and strength in doing that. I pray that you give them health so that they can continue to do it, Lord, I pray. Father, and I just ask you for wisdom for Clark County, for their form of leaders as well as Washougals. And I pray for Washington in general as well, Lord, that you guide us in all of the processes and all of the decisions that they have to make. Father, and I ask in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you, Bob. With that, I will call the meeting to order. Just prior to this meeting, we did have a workshop meeting of the council. There were three items that we had on the agenda for that one. One, a presentation by the Parks Foundation of Clark County. Some discussion on e-cigarettes as they pertain inside the city of Washougal. And then also a discussion in regards to RTC, which will continue as part of this meeting. So with that, I would ask you to please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Rose, could you call the roll, please?
Councilmember Boger.
Here.
Councilmember Wagner.
Here.
Councilmember Greenlee.
Here.
Councilmember Lindsay.
Here.
Councilmember McDaniel.
Here.
Councilmember Shoemaker.
Here.
Councilmember Freeman.
Here.
And Student Representative Moore.
Here.
Thank you. Amendments to the agenda. I know I have one item that I've placed on there under new business, item number F, which is a continuation of the discussion on RTC representation. Council, are there any other amendments to the agenda?
I'm sorry, which one did you put on?
RTC representation.
Which,
Continuation of the discussion we were just having in workshop.
okay, under new business.
Yep, item F.
Got it, thank you.
Okay, hearing no other amendments, are there any members of the public that would like to address council? Good evening.
Good evening. I actually have two addressing things, one by myself and one with the group. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, people who help make the city work, and public. I just wanted to say thank you for all you guys do. It's amazing, this community we live in. And part of that is Unite Community Coalition, and we do several things, but one of those things is trying to ensure that the healthy choice is the easy choice. And so one of the things we're doing is we have about 100 of these prescription lock boxes for the home that we would like to give away. And so if you know someone that's interested or is interested yourself, please contact us. You can get us through our Facebook page or a Unite member. And our kind of tagline for that whole campaign is be a hero, lock up your meds. A lot of us, will have a surgery or some other kind of medical procedure or heart medication or other kind of medications in the home that are just not safe to be laying around for children and youth. So we have a simple solution right here. They're free. And if you want to fill out a survey, we'd love to really give you. There's also, that's the other part, is we do have our community survey going on until December 19th. There's a lockbox out there for that, and it's also online. And I'd like to invite all of you to an event called Youth First. There are 5 coalitions in this county that are about reducing substance abuse and underage drinking. Bliss Center, Battleground, Clark County, and West Van for Youth. And we're having an event December 10th with the outgoing sheriff, the incoming sheriff, and coalition and elected officials from all over the county. So we'd like to invite you to that. I can email that out to you as well, but we'd love to have you come and see what's going on with prevention. So that's my unite part, and now I'd like to invite my cohorts to come up here, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hello, I'm Kathy Brock, and I'm from Camas, Washington, and I go to Bethel Community Church.
I'm Robert Barber, new pastor at St. Matthew Lutheran Church right here on Washougal River Road. Glad to be in the community and happy to be a part of making things happen.
Welcome.
And we have been, they're part of the group that's been meeting for about a year now with trying to see what we can do to help the homeless in our area. And there's a lot of different problems, a lot of different solutions, but with the cold coming back, we decided we need to start somewhere. So we have a kind of an idea of where to start. And if anybody would like to donate towards that, we have a kind of a self-sustaining thing going on. There's always extra expenses. Interfaith Treasure House would be happy to take donations for that effort. And Pastor Bob will talk about the specifics.
So we met right here in this room just a little over a week ago, and there were about 10 to 12 people that were represented there, and it was decided that we would just begin, as mentioned, begin somewhere. So through the months of January, February, and March, we're going to provide a hot meal on Friday nights from 4 to 5 o'clock. There are already volunteers. Bethel is taking the first couple of weeks, and there are a number of churches and nonprofits who are saying we'll take responsibility for a Friday, providing the food and the manpower to prepare the meal and serve that meal and then clean up afterwards. It was decided that we would use the senior center here in Washougal for two reasons. The first one that was mentioned was there's a lot of young adults and especially high school students who fall into that category of either homeless or certainly underserved and are hungry. And coming to a church is a little bit threatening or possibly just uncomfortable. And so we said, you know what, a city building is a great place because everybody's welcome there. It belongs to all of us. And it's a non-threatening environment. The meal's going to be for anyone who needs a hot meal. It doesn't matter what age you are, and we're not even gonna check at the door your economic status. If you need a hot meal and you just would like to come together with the community, we'll serve you. So it's starting January 2nd. Love to have you a part of that. We're going to have another meeting just going over the details about that on December 18th, again here at 1 o'clock. So invite all of you, everyone in the room, to come and be a part of that.
We also have a student at Washougal High School who is collecting hats, gloves, and socks. And we have a donation box out in the foyer. Also, for anyone who would like to begin their own collection and bring it here, we would love to have those. At Bethel, we have about 50 different, what we call blessing bags, that we've put together, which includes toiletries, non-perishable food, hand warmers, and socks. And we will be bringing those here to start with for the first meal. So for anyone who's interested in contributing, either bring the socks and whatnot here, or you can bring them to Bethel Community Church, whatever is easiest. And if you know of a business that would like to also start their own collection, we'll just funnel it right in. So I have several businesses that I'm in contact with that would like to participate. So thank you.
Excellent.
I would say one last thing is while the churches are responsible, or the nonprofits and churches are taking responsibility for organization, anybody that wants to volunteer to help out on one of the Friday nights, we do have a person who's kind of coordinating and will connect you with who's in charge of a particular Friday night. So, you need more volunteer hours, we'll take you.
So Kathy, Bethel's taking the first couple of
Yes, actually,
Fridays?
Bethel and Living Purpose.
Okay.
And so we will be, I'm sure that both churches, at least at my church, there was a sign-up sheet for that because we're really blessed in our community. Lots of people volunteer. So we would want people to be in contact with one of those two churches to start with. But we also have an opportunity to put together blessing bags as well. And for those people who are interested, if you could just contact Bethel, they will help me fill a night or several nights to put those together.
Very cool.
And you can also always just contact, it's not part of Unite, it's a separate thing, this is like a volunteer thing, but Unite Washougal Community Coalition 1, I think it's at Gmail, and I can funnel it to them too, so.
Okay.
from a
I do
public
know that,
interest.
so Bethel and Loving Purpose are taking the first 2 weeks, St. Matthew's taking the 3rd week, and St. Anne and United Methodist Church are coming together for the 4th week in January. So January's covered, and we'll work from there.
So it'll be every Friday?
Every Friday
Okay.
evening.
Just for January, February, March.
Okay.
And then we'll see.
And then we'll reevaluate and determine from there.
Awesome. Well, I know I'd responded to the emails, and Annie and I are very happy to help in any way possible. So let me know if you end up running short on anything, because we don't want you to end up running short. So if there's one other thing you want to do or whatever. We also, I think, after trying to organize the garage over the last couple of weeks, we've found that we have a couple of no longer needed televisions and VCRs and stuff. So if it's appropriate, we've got a ton of kids' movies, everything else to bring those down. I'm sure Wanda can find somewhere to store it in between. But we'd certainly be willing to donate that and start it a little bit earlier or whatever it happened to be, and let it play during dinner or after or whatnot. So
That would be great.
awesome. Thank you for doing that. Council, any questions? Connie Jo?
Pastor, welcome
Thank you.
to Washougal. Remind me of your name.
Robert Barber?
Robert Barber. I was searching the internet recently for churches in Washougal, and up popped your name and your face, and so welcome.
Thank you.
And my husband and I, my husband is Bob, who just prayed for us this evening, are members of Washougal, and members of Bethel is what I meant to say, and Washougal. We're very excited to see you there and participate.
It's great to be here.
Good.
Been
Very
here 2
good.
weeks and he's already on 2 committees.
What?
He's been here 2 weeks and he's already on 2 committees.
I know. He's going to be a great,
Go get her.
I believe it's important
Addition to
be a part of
Washougal.
the community. If you're going to live in a community, be a part of the community.
especially as a pastor.
Yep. I just heard about the soup kitchen and the efforts through my church, St. Anne's Episcopal Church, who's responsible for the third Friday, and I was proud to say I'm the first one to sign up.
Good girl.
Thank you for all the work you're doing. I know, Rose, thank you to you as well. This actually came through a member of the community that last year asked me to put together a meeting just to start talking about the homeless that we have here in the community, and specifically the kids and that type of thing. And I think it's fair to say that a number of us, our eyes were kind of open to how much we actually have that need in the community that we don't see. So for you all taking on the meetings, and Rose, for you coordinating those and being at all of them, thank you very much for the efforts you're doing. This is cool. This is what we meant it to be about.
We're only a part, it's not us, it's all the people
yeah.
behind us.
No, understood.
Great start. Good crew.
Well, I just have to say that the young adults are always passed over. Once you turn 18, it's like, okay, you're an adult, go do it. Well, we have a young adult son who's learning challenged, and he struggles in every area. And what a great thing if he could come on a Friday night, just to maybe meet other kids
Yeah.
his age. A kid, he's 24, he's a kid. And so, thank you for choosing this age. I know you're including younger than 18, but you mentioned young adults. It is
Yeah,
for
everybody, anybody
all
who's
ages.
hungry and wants to learn.
So that really
And it is our
impresses
purpose,
me.
And that could be, we're focusing on trying to make it friendly for that, and even outreaching to kids to volunteer, because sometimes that's an easier in for them to go get served or to volunteer.
Yeah, the great thing is they can come volunteer and then they still get the free meal.
Yeah.
They get to eat.
So I'm helping out, but yet, it's kind of I get to give back and to receive.
Yeah. Well, I know our presentation tonight from the Parks, I always get their name wrong.
Parks Foundation of Clark.
Foundation. They showed at Burstenberg, they had Friday nights where they played sports and did all these different things for young adults. That was impressive. And of course, we're looking forward to having a place in our community, a community center for that to happen. Sports and food and how much better can it get? Thank you.
I have a question about servers and people who are wanting to volunteer to help with the meal. Do you have an age limit on who can volunteer? Like, can, 16, 17-year-olds
Absolutely.
help
We
with that?
do, one of the requirements that we talked about is there has to be someone with the organization who's responsible, and we're suggesting at least 2 people who have food handler license, and then they give direction to those who are working.
Right.
And there should be enough people involved in, I've already received so many people who are saying, I'll help, so that if someone that's 16 or even, in middle school wants to participate, we can partner an adult with them and they can work together. We'll figure a way. Anybody that wants to help out should be able to help out.
But if you have suggestions, we'll, all that stuff will be kind of detailed at the next meeting, but you're giving us stuff to think about, like, oh yeah, we gotta figure that part out too.
Do they have to have a,
We can sit there and talk all day, or we wanna do it right, but we also wanna do something and not
Get started.
be cold, have cold people.
do the volunteers have to have food handlers?
No.
Just,
No,
the church will provide 2 or 3 people from their organization or
Good.
nonprofit.
And then they'll give direction as to what you need to do, how to handle it, so on and so forth.
Excellent.
You're welcome to come to our next meeting and ask us some more questions. We haven't missed anything, so.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for
awesome.
doing that.
Thank you.
Paige, can you help us get that word out around the high school as well?
Of course.
Awesome, thank you.
Are you? Is that
Other
the
folks?
one?
Mr. Jordan,
Didn't sound like it. Just-
good evening.
Evening. Evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, City Council, staff. See, my name is Thomas Gordon. I live at 642 I Street in Washougal. And the upcoming meeting that we're having on December 9th with Burlington Northern's Santa Fe, I'm submitting some questions I'd like you to consider to use when you talk to those folks. And some of the questions are, what are the leading causes of derailments? Does the presence of coal dust on the tracks affect the frequency of derailments? What is the lowest speed the DOT 111 tank cars could rupture at? What about the newer 1232 cars? What is the maximum speed for a unit oil train in Washougal? A unit oil train is composed of 110 oil cars, each car holding up to 30,000 gallons. At that speed, how far would it take a train to stop? Do oil trains have the same speed limit as other trains? Who is financially responsible for an oil train spill, fire, or explosion in or near Washougal? Who owns the tank cars? May we see a copy of your insurance policy for hauling Bakken crude or diluted bitumen? Bakken crude is sweet crude oil from North Dakota, and diluted bitumen is heavy sour crude oil from Canada, which is diluted with natural gas condensate or naphtha usually. Do the oil tank cars vent flammable vapors to relieve pressure? If so, at what pressure? What percent of each type of oil is lost between the time it is loaded into tank cars and unloaded at the terminal? Vapors? Leakage? How many crew members are specified or oil trains in your contract with the rail workers' unions? Safety is influenced by worker fatigue, scheduling, and solitary working conditions. How many crew members will be on an oil train in the future? What is the purpose of sand-filled rail cars behind the locomotives? I understand that 5 years ago, 5 buffer cars were required between the locomotives and oil cars, and now it is down to 1 sand-filled buffer car. What is the purpose of this car? If Governor Inslee asked BNSF to haul oil trains only at speeds the tank cars are crash-worthy, would BNSF honor that request in Washington? BNSF speaks of investments in rail improvements. What percent of that money comes from the public treasury? Who would pay for something like a new overpass in Washougal? If a crossing in or near Washougal is blocked by a stalled car, a landslide, or some other obstruction, Is there a warning system so the train can stop in time to avoid an accident? In Nevada, the collision avoidance system has been tested, and it's supposed to have failed. Is this true? We have heard that in Minnesota, BNSF opposed a legislative request that they be notified by phone within 1 hour of a spill. Is that true? Then, with all the gun violence these days, what caliber of bullet would be needed to puncture a DOT 111 tank car or a 1232 tank car? We've heard that the brake system was invented in the 1800s. What are the chances that oil trains will have electronically controlled brakes exclusively within 5 years? Thank you.
You bet. Tom, if you could give a copy of that to Rose, we can make sure and get that
Copies for
distributed to the
everybody.
council.
Oh, good. Copies for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom.
Whoa.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It's farther back than usual.
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, Harvey.
Councilors, Mayor, my name is Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. Mr. Mayor, in 2010, in your first year of being mayor, you inherited a budget that included 20 sworn police officers. Your 2011 budget retained the police department at 20 officers, including the chief. During 2011, one police officer retired and one resigned, leaving 18 officers. After both officers had departed, you placed on the agenda for the council to consider the creation of a full-time position as aide to the city administrator. At that meeting, the council had only 6 members present because Councilor Michael Delvar had notified you that he would be on vacation. During the discussions by the council, Member McDaniel stated that the first city administrator did not have an assistant, so why did the current administrator need one? Councilor Costin stated, I have reservations, but I will vote yes. Councilor Morris asked the mayor, how will that position be funded for the next year? The mayor said, it's in the budget. The vote by council resulted in a tie, with the mayor then breaking the tie with a yes vote. The title for the above position is now referred to as aide to the mayor and city administrator, as shown on the desk nameplate for this employee. At a later council meeting, the hiring of one police officer was approved, which has resulted in a police staff of 19 members, including the chief, for the years 2012 to present. We need at least 20 or more officers to respond to the number of calls received. Our police department answers more calls per officer per year than any other Southwest Washington Police Department. Mr. Mayor, it seems painfully obvious that your personal priority of having an administrative aide starting in 2011 until now is more important to you than employing one more police officer to serve and protect the citizens of Washougal. This is the 3rd year in a row I've said basically the same thing, Mr. Mayor, and you have never answered why you will not increase the police department back to where it was when you took office. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Harvey.
I knew that's what you were going to say.
Anyone else that would like to address council? Yes, ma'am.
Hello.
Good evening.
My name is Michelle Wolcott. I live at 1323 K Street in the heart of the old town, I guess you'd say. And I've been mulling over homeownership here for 13 years. And I've gotten a little bit of information from the city regarding utilities. So my topics are water and roads. I remember 5 years ago getting a little thing in the mail or with my water bill saying, please do your laundry after 7 o'clock at night. Or don't water your lawn in the summertime. Things that you can do to reduce your water bill by reducing your usage or when you use it. But it didn't say that they're going to charge me less for using water after 7 o'clock at night, so there was really no motivation to change the way I have my lifestyle. The water bill is going up. We all know it, we've seen it in the newspaper. That's, by the way, where I get most of my news is from the Post-Record. So to try to communicate with the homeowners of our city, I would really like to hear a response to what I'm bringing up tonight, possibly in the monthly bill. I heard recently, or maybe I saw it on the bill, prices are going up again this January. I've already had to arrange my budget in the past 5 years. Taxes are different, Social Security is different, everything's tight. So I would like a suggestion as to what the city's doing to curtail their costs regarding water and what individual homeowners can do to change what their bill's going to be. See, stormwater, and this has never been brought up in my years of being here. My particular house, the roof, we have gutters, they're all collected, and it's an infiltration system on site on my property. So I don't contribute to the stormwater, but stormwater is part of the bill. So maybe some kind of way of saying, hey, you're not contributing, you don't have to pay that, or you're not using your water as much. I don't know, things are just going up, and there doesn't seem any way to correct it. I'd like to conserve, I'd like to have some suggestions on how I can get my bill to be either the same or lower, and what's the city doing to keep the prices down. So that's water. So the roads, again, living here for 13 years, I've had 3 chip seal repairs on the huge piece, 10, 12 blocks of K Street, plus the surrounding neighborhood to get out of my neighborhood. It's so frustrating. It's like degrading to be compared to the newer neighborhoods of Washougal or to our neighboring city of Camas to run over this dirt rock road, throwing up things into your car, putting up the tar on the side of your vehicle. And then because you have this chip seal and you don't have a curb, which I kind of like, the idea of the roughness of the area, but then you're tracking in all the rock that the city has to put down between your driveway and the street, track it into your house, put the chips all over the floor in your house, and causing more maintenance issues. 3 chip reseals, I'm not sure if that's what they're called, but asphalt, concrete. And again, I've heard pricing, but I haven't heard why it can be done some places, or there used to be a schedule of what streets are going to be redone in a proper fashion with a curb or with asphalt to make a smooth surface that's cleaner and safer. So I'd like to know what's happening with that. I've made some calls to the city before for the Public Works and asking about when my particular street, of course, just concerned about my neighborhood, but that's what I know. I've seen the new neighborhoods, they look great, but it's the older neighborhoods that as soon as you come off Washougal River Road or East Street, you know where you are just by the vibration of the road and the bumpiness. So I'd like to know when we can expect to have proper streets in the older neighborhoods upgraded instead of the 3 times chip seal repair that I think is rather worthless. And is there a way to be, again, responded to the reason I'm coming in person rather than in a public forum, rather than making a phone call and treated as an individual? I'd like the city, other property owners to understand these issues. I just visited with my daughter, a couple of neighbors, and I told them what I was doing. They're like, oh yeah, tell them I'm with you. I want to know too.
Bring them.
But yeah, but they don't come. So I think the water bill issue would be great to have an insert in there explaining what's happening. Not just they're going up, get ready. Hey, it's been a nice discount for a while, but it's going up again. What are we supposed to do? How are we having any control over it? If you say we do laundry after 7 o'clock at night, is it cheaper then? No, it's the same cost. Or are you contributing to the stormwater system, or what are you doing as an individual? Something. So it'd be nice to have an insert with that city bill, because that's definitely something we all see.
Understood. One of the downsides, and it's not to say that that'll never happen, currently our billing system, if you've noticed, it's a sealed thing, it's not in an envelope.
Oh, true.
So we don't really have a way to insert things in there, and the amount of information we
But that
get is
could-
very brief.
That could change. It's a new one, but about 7 years old or so.
It could change. They actually changed it so that it got rid of all the time and the cost and the consumption that there was of having to go through and have a mail house stuff those, do all that, send them out. Anyway, you've asked a number of good questions and brought up a number of good points, and I want to make sure, Rose, that when you get this transcribed, that we pull those for Trevor and/or Jim to make sure and get back to you directly. We do, normally, the Post Record would have loved to have been here tonight. I know she's on vacation to hear you say that you get most of your information
I
from
do.
them, because
I
they love
really
hearing
do.
that. And she covers it pretty well. No, it will not make any difference when you do your laundry. Probably the only time you would have got that, and it's not a reduction in any fees to do that, is
It's demand, yeah.
correct, and if the county's in a serious drought, because it has to do with refilling the reservoirs and at what time of day we do that and all of those kinds of things. So, and unfortunately down on K Street, as the council also learned this last year, we did have an entire inventory done of all of our streets and what shape they're in. Surprisingly, they're in pretty good shape overall. But that study actually says, don't ever rebuild anything like K Street to where it's a fully standard street. Maintain exactly what's there, because we can never come up with enough money in order to do that. I don't know that Washougal's ever had a schedule. I know Camas years ago sort of had a loose one, because they were still trying to get rid of the last few actual dirt roads that they had in town. And they finally accomplished that. Typically, most of the road projects are done a number of different ways. The biggest one is through developers as they come in and redevelop, and they've got to bring them up to standards, which on K Street, unless a flood completely wipes out all of the river and everybody sells their property, it'll never happen. So most of the rest of them have done through LIDs, where the property owners have actually contributed into the cost of doing those as well.
I know that 2 streets in our neighborhood have been done. That's why I'm comparing to that, I Street and J.
Some of them in little pieces, and some of the sidewalk areas that we've tried to do connections and that type of stuff we're doing those through grants, mainly doing those through grants. We have, though, this year well, I shouldn't say it's the first year. We've just increased in the budget, if the council passes it the way that it is. Traditionally, we've spent about $150,000 a year on repairs of roadways, and the council heretofore has agreed in the budget to up that to $350,000. That sometimes it seems like a lot, but in 06, 07, we were spending $500,000 doing that because we had that much revenue coming in. So it's a far cry from where it's been, but at that level, we should be close to maintaining what's there now, but maintaining it in the way that it's in. So I know those roads. My scoutmasters live down there. A couple of my best buddies live down there, and even riding your bike down there in 1970, whatever, wasn't a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Except jumping over the potholes, which were pretty good size back then, too.
Right.
Which actually, a lot of that used to be in the county back then. I don't know if you know that.
Well, you spend a lot of your money, as you know, as a homeowner, upgrading your house, and maintaining it, building it up, keeping it nice, and then track rocks through it.
On the utility side, certainly things continue to go up. I know the council has taken action in the last 2 or 3 years to actually curb the increases that were set to go in, which doesn't answer a lot of your questions in there, just to say that they're going to go up again, but they're not going to be as bad as what they were. We're also doing a much better job at going out and telling our story and trying to attract some grants and very low-cost loans to do some of that work that would have cost much more, and we've got to turn around and pass that along to the ratepayers that are there. That's the only option that we've got for those. In regards to the stormwater, you're correct, and actually for that section of K Street you've got outside there that doesn't have curb gutter or any of that kind of stuff, you are our stormwater answer for what comes off of that roadway, your front yard. Thank you for letting us bill you for it. But unfortunately, that's kind of the case. But Some of the other things that factor in there as well is the work that the city does throughout the city with the street sweepers and that type of stuff in areas to actually clean that stuff off of the streets before it goes into the stormwater. And that's where those are charged back to. I doubt on K Street you see that come through very often, because if we did, we'd just tear the street up faster.
Right,
Because
and
that's
have to replace
shit
the
that
rock
it's in.
again.
Joyce is not far from you. You're up on G, H? H. Same thing, and one of my other scoutmasters lived right next to the home she now lives in, so.
And I'm just saying, it's 3 times of a chip seal. I'd like to see the math on the 3 times of that, or 1 time with asphalt and the longevity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the costs get extremely expensive, not to say that it's not ever going to get done. One of Shepherd Road is another one that we're looking at and we're trying to do through grants. One that we were very close on that would have redone all of that with streets, sidewalks, gutters, everything along the way. But by the time we get done, not just with the street, then we've got to put in the stormwater, we've got to put in the curbs, the sidewalks, and that price goes up, 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 up.
Yeah, I can stay with some sidewalks, we're fine with that. Keeps everybody going slow, but a curb would be
Hopefully.
nice. Yeah.
Hopefully. I will make sure, though, that we get some staff to get back to you on some specific things so that you can,
Okay.
you can answer those.
And my
with
neighbors are
with your
interested too.
neighbors
I'm
as well.
Just trying to think of, besides the newspaper, what other way is there to get out to the homeowners? I don't know.
It's appreciated. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you brought your daughter. I wish your neighbors had come with you, too, so,
Mayor,
yes.
we've talked a little bit recently about doing emails to our community. Are you on the email list? Because we have regular emails that go out to anybody that will go to the website and sign up to receive them. And we're talking about using that website, that email blast that goes out to whoever signs up as a means of informing you of those types of things.
Just another way of
Thank you.
communication.
Thank you. Okay, thank you for your time. Oh,
I just wanted to mention, I lived at 1203 K Street for 8 years.
yes, I remember you.
And so if you'd like to talk after or some other time, grab a card and give me a call.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you for coming. Don't be silent. Don't just go back and not come back again and remind us about things, so. Michelle?
Yeah, her question certainly isn't unique. It's one I get a lot as a new council member, and I know looking at my own utility bill, it explained how the rates would be going up, but there wasn't a lot, just a layman's background on how they got there and why. Is that something we would want to provide the public perhaps? Because sometimes just knowing the why,
Right. Answers the
not that it
question.
makes the situation any better, but you understand, other than they're just jacking up my rate for I don't know why.
Right. It's the city again.
And possibly on a website, this is why.
We've got, Jennifer, do we have the stuff out on the counters already?
For 15?
Yeah. Okay.
I believe so, and it has been posted to the website. Rose can correct me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
For the new rates for next year, and we do have the rate study and all of those things listed on the website of the utilities, including tips during the summer. We put watering tips and those types of things that we refer people on the bill to.
But does it talks about how the rates will increase, but does it say why?
Right, we
We're
have-
building these new facilities, we're creating infrastructure that wasn't there or that needs to be enhanced,
We have those informational.
It is.
things
online.
And I believe it's
Okay.
still online. I can check. I know the website's been
Okay.
updated. But when we first did the bond issuance back in 11, we had a lot of that information on a flyer with the various projects listed by water, sewer, storm, what the costs of those were, and how that gets incorporated into the rate.
Yeah, I think that would be really helpful. Yeah, okay, thanks.
I was just going to mention that the one time that we do send out a flyer every year on water is the water quality report, and we might piggyback on that.
Sorry, we kind of went out of how we normally do this and tried to answer some of your questions while you were right here. So, again, any other members of the public that would like to address council? Okay, not your last opportunity. There is another one before the meeting's over. Moving on to consent agenda. Council, this evening, there are 10 items on your consent agenda. Your council minutes of November 10, 2014. Your workshop minutes of November 17th, 2014. your council minutes of November 17, 2014, your accounts payable in the amount of $593,986.80, your payroll checks totaling $553,413.95, Agenda Bill 93-14, an authorization for the mayor to sign an office building lease agreement with the Children's Home Society of Washington, Agenda Bill 94-14, an authorization for the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Columbia West Engineering for independent testing and inspection services on the wastewater treatment plant improvement project. Agenda Bill 95-14, an authorization for the mayor to sign professional services agreement with CH2M Hill Engineers for wastewater treatment plant supervisory control and data acquisition upgrades Phase 2. Agenda Bill 96-14, an authorization for the mayor to sign the professional services agreement with Wallace Engineering for general engineering public works in 2015. And Agenda Bill 97-14, an authorization for the mayor to sign a professional services agreement with Renee Carroll for tourism support in 2015.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that the consent agenda be approved as read.
Seeing no objections, so ordered. I've got a lot of signing to do. Moving to new business, Agenda Bill 98-14, an authorization for a fund transfer from the Emergency Utility Assistance Program. Jennifer.
Good evening. For the Emergency Utility Assistance Program, we had an approved application that went through the Finance Committee and was approved by the majority of the Finance Committee. As council knows, we have the program that allows for individuals that meet certain criteria to be assisted with their payment on a one-time basis. And the amount of the expenditure required or for the transfer is $250. So the recommended action is to authorize a transfer of funds from the Utility Assistance Program Fund to the customer's utility account as approved by the Finance Committee.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve the transfer of funds to the utility assistance account.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to authorize the transfer of funds from the Utility Assistance Program Fund to the customer's utility account as approved by the Finance Committee. Council discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries. Thank you. Agenda Bill 99-14, a resolution amending the personnel policies of the city. Jeanette, welcome.
Two policy items here in front of you this evening. The first of which is an amendment to the policy 2A that covers the benefits for our non-represented employees, and the addition of a couple of items, one of which is to include as an option for employees the two higher-end Kaiser plans. The cost to the city, there will be no additional cost because the employee, the city will only continue to pay at that level of the $250 deductible. The employee will pay that difference between the higher-end plan and the $250 deductible plan. And the second item is to allow for an opt-out, opt-in out of medical coverage and receive $250 a month if they choose to do so. Both these items are consistent with our 307 contract and actually should have been included in the policy before you last year. It was an oversight on my part to not include those. The second item is to put into policy a statute that came into play earlier this year, allowing employees up to 2 unpaid holidays, faith-based holidays per year. And so we're just taking that law, if you will, and putting it into our personnel policies. So the recommended action is to read the resolution by title only, pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Thank you, Jeanette.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the resolution by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
A resolution amending Section 2A.05 and adding Section 9.11 to the city's personnel policy manual.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass and post the resolution in the usual manner.
Second.
I've got a motion and several seconds to pass and post the resolution in the usual manner. Council discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Agenda Bill 100-14, a 2014 budget amendment. Welcome back.
We had a opportunity to do an advanced refunding on some, some general obligation bonds, and so we did not anticipate that when we passed the 2014 budget. So in order to be in line with our approved budget, we need to do a budget amendment for 2014. We've also included a couple other funds that we are cleaning up at the end of the year to account for projects that rolled over between years. We thought that a couple of them would be done in 2013, and they actually rolled into 2014. So we included those on this ordinance change as well. So the recommended action is to read the ordinance by title only and pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance amending ordinance number 1753, adopting the annual budget of the city of Washougal for the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2014.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Second.
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Any council discussion? Dave?
Would you remind me of the amounts for each of these projects that we're doing here? It's been a couple of days since I read that.
For the advanced refunding, we're adding revenues and expenditures of $3.7 million. And again, that'll allow for annual savings for the next 12 years of approximately $19,000 to the city. We added in the payments for the new Public Works Trust Fund loans. We don't get amortization schedules on those until the project is complete, so we don't know what the actual payment will be for those. So we need to add $36,000 of revenue and $36,000 of expense. The niche wall final retainage payment overlapped years for the cemetery fund. We did a loan between the perpetual care fund and the cemetery fund. So we need to add expenses to the perpetual care fund of $1,645. And then it was the water, the well field, west side well field disinfection project, and the another Public Works Trust Fund project crossed over, and revenues we received back from Public Works Trust Fund of $440,000, and the expense side was $667,000.
And if I remember correctly, none of these are coming from reserves.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. That brings us to Agenda Bill 101-14, the 2015 Budget Ordinance.
Okay, now on to 2015. We held the public hearing on November 10th, and it was advertised as required by law. We've also discussed the budget numerous times in addition to the ones listed on the agenda bill, but most specifically the 22nd, we did the high-level revenues and expenditures. The 27th was the major presentation, and then the public hearing on the 11th and discussion on the 17th. So the recommended action is to read the ordinance by title only and pass, post, and publish in the usual manner.
Mr. Mayor, I ask unanimous consent that we read the ordinance by title only.
Hearing no objection, so ordered.
An ordinance adopting the annual budget for the city of Washougal, Washington for the 2015 fiscal year.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance in the usual manner. Council discussion. David?
I yield to Councilmember Lindsay.
I'd like to amend the 2015 budget to take $5,000 from the new dangerous building abatement fund and place it into the general fund for continuing the feral cat program.
Second.
A point of information.
Go ahead.
I intend to propose an amendment which would invalidate that, because I intend to propose an amendment that would not fund the abatement fund from the reserves. So how do we reconcile those two situations?
I think you would just bring it up as an additional amendment itself.
It would have the effect of wiping her amendment out and other things.
Well, but then we can redo the
See what we
amendment.
want to do.
Yeah. So we're in the discussion phase. So I can propose an amendment to that effect.
You would be
Can't
proposing an amendment to an amendment.
You cannot do that.
I think you need to deal with the amendments one-on-one.
Well,
Excuse me,
my
Mr.
understanding
Mayor.
is that you can do it, but you have to vote on the amendments in order. Not in the order they were made, but in the order of their effect.
You can't. I don't believe you can have two amendments on the floor at the same time.
You can amend an amendment, can you not?
I think so.
Jennifer?
The abatement fund was one that we ended up funding operationally. If you look at page 11 of
Not
your
out of the
budget,
reserves.
it has the reserve, what we're proposing to come from reserves.
Ah. We're back to your amendment. Thank you.
Okay, so I do have a motion and a second to amend the budget document to show a transfer of $5,000 from the home abatement or property abatement account to the feral cat program. Further council discussion. So this is just on that amendment alone. David?
Councilmember Lindsay has approached me after the last meeting asking for my support on this, and I promised her careful consideration of it, even though I've already expressed opposition to it. And I spent the last week talking with people in my own family about whether or not I should support this. And after serious consideration, I'm not able to support it. And my reasons have been made clear in the past. We don't know how effective this program is, and throwing money at a problem without knowing how effective it's going to be is not a good idea, particularly in a town like Washougal where every dollar counts. You just heard about the lack of a police officer, which I'll be addressing later also. But if my colleagues continue the pattern of supporting this that they've established in the past, I would ask them to consider two things. First of all, I would ask them to restrict the use of this money to spaying as opposed to neutering. And the reason is quite simple. If you neuter a male cat, there's always another male cat that a female in heat can find. So you're going to have a litter. Whereas if you spay a female cat, you're sparing the city somewhere between 9 and 14 litters in the lifetime of the cat. So I would ask them to adopt that guideline. The second thing is, if you're going to approve this for the coming year, before the end of this year, I would ask you to determine how you're going to evaluate the success of this program or the non-success of this program using outcome-based criteria and objective data. In other words, I don't think you can prove it's effective, but if you want to spend the money, I'd like very much for us to be able to
show the people of Washougal why we thought it was effective, and that we can prove that it's going to be or has been effective by the end of next year. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Bet. Go ahead, Joe.
We had an excellent presentation because I was against it. And based on the information, and I'm not saying that everything she said was perfectly factual, because yet she, through experience, I'm trusting her word is what I'm trying to say. When I say, I don't know if it's factual, because I have to trust her word, where it's so new of a program, but they've proven that these colonies, is that what you called them, will diminish over time. So are those, is that audio available, that the conversation that we had at the workshop on Friday?
Ad hoc.
The ad hoc budget meeting? I'm just saying that maybe you could listen to the expert that came and shared. We talked for a really long time. It was educational. So I'm going to vote in favor of it this year, but I too ask that we have some evidence. The problem is that it's all volunteer. And she was saying it's difficult to get volunteers to document things. Well, that's something that I want to ask the council to insist that we continue to find ways of documenting its success. Because if we can't, then we shouldn't continue to throw money at it. So hopefully you'll stand with me in that, and Dave, in that request in the future, that we continue to find ways to document that their method is effective.
Michelle?
I just wanted to give this to Dave. One of the things I really appreciated, though, was how much it would cost if the city took on this job. As Connie Jo mentioned, it was all volunteers that's doing this. And, you know, people were talking in the range of $20,000, $30,000 because they'd have to have a whole separate position to fund actually taking care of a problem like this. And the fact that it's being done by all volunteers, I mean, it's really a great discount for us in that sense. And then she also explained about the male-female thing. They catch what they can catch because they're very difficult to catch, and they take care of male and female. So they do them all. They don't differentiate, but if they can catch them, they take care of fixing.
Well, and the beauty of the program is that as they began to die off, the colony disappears, and no other cat tries to move in and take over. That's what sold me. That statistically they've proven that these colonies, as they've age and they stop having as many babies, no one takes over. No other cats from other territories. So if that's true, then they will die out.
Any other comments or questions? Joyce?
I just had, the presentation was very good and professional, Dave, and I'm sorry you weren't there. A female cat can have up to 100+ kitties a year, and they start breeding at the age of 4 months. You don't have to be very good at mathematics to understand what a cat colony can become in a short period of time and the problems that can be in a neighborhood. And I think it's well worth us putting the money again this year into the program. She's very professional. She understands where we're coming from, and see the results of it, and then we can decide next year.
Mayor?
Well,
We did, on your behalf, actually ask her about whether it made sense to only spay the females and not neuter the males. And she said what the real problem is ends up having to do with cat behavior, which is quite different than dogs. Dogs have a range of maybe 20 square miles. House cats have very small ranges, maybe a half a mile. And so when you develop these colonies, if what you do is spay the females, then the males that are in the colony will leave the colony to find another colony with fertile females that are in heat. On the other hand, if you neuter the males, they provide kind of a peripheral guard, if you will, for the females in the middle, and it keeps the outside males away. That was news to me, that by spaying these, by neutering these males, you in effect actually end up protecting the remaining fertile females in the colony from outside males. That's a piece of cat behavior that you would not see in dogs or in a lot of other critters. And I haven't explained it as clearly as she did, but she made it very clear that from their point of view, in order to be effective at extinguishing these colonies, or at least keeping them in check, you really need to spay and neuter. Otherwise, the territorial thing breaks down in a way that you end up not fixing your problem. And that was all news to me.
Dave?
Actually, I'm a little surprised. I'm certainly no authority on cat behavior, but it's my understanding that among cats and dogs, neutering a male makes them not only less aggressive, but less strong. And therefore, I would be surprised that they would be able to protect the colony from intruding males. So I'm not sympathetic to the problem. I have a stray cat, which has taken up residence on my deck in the wintertime. In the summertime, he takes off down into the area where the coyotes are.
I know we have a lot of expertise on this council, but
it's amazing, isn't it?
I don't know that we need to deal with cat behavior.
I deal with it when they jump in my lap. Can I jump?
Come up to my place. We got one that'll jump in your lap.
I've got two.
And the other
I have
issue-
no idea whether this is correct or not.
The other issue, kind of, so like I said, if, I keep prefacing everything with if it's true, which hopefully in the last year is year one, this will be year two, we can start proving it. I live in a new neighborhood. New neighborhood, new neighborhood. New neighborhood, new neighborhood. We don't have the problem, but the older neighborhoods do. And so, based on my co-counselor's personal experience, it's right in her neighborhood. She has a colony or more than one, I don't know. But, so me, I'm kind of like, really, this happens? And so, she's saying yes, right in her own yard. So, let's do it for the sake of these neighbors that do have this happening in their community.
At least that you know of, you don't have one, according to her.
Right. I'm thinking we probably have homeless cat colonies, just like we have homeless people in our community that we may or may not see. So
That's what a feral
it
cat
could be
colony
everywhere.
is.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying good versus bad. I'm talking about rundown, neglected homes versus an HOA that doesn't allow certain things. That's what I meant by older, newer. Hopefully you didn't think I was stating
No. I don't
better.
think cats can read HOAs, though.
She was talking about mattresses, dirty diapers piled up outside the homes, the things that attract them and they live there. That specifically isn't going to happen where there's an HOA. So I don't disagree. I have raccoons. If I have raccoons, I'm going to have cats.
Now, even though I'm going to vote for this, even though in the past I've said that I think cats have constitutional rights, and that this would impact their reproductive freedoms.
Call for the question.
I'm still going to vote for it.
Point well taken. I've got a motion
Yeah,
and a
let's
second to adjust the budget or ordinance by moving $5,000 from the property abatement fund to the feral cat program. Any additional comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Boy, that was weak.
Meow.
Meow.
Motion carries. We still do have a motion and a second on the table to pass, post, and publish the ordinance as amended in the usual manner. Additional discussion on that item. Dave?
Mr. Mayor, I have 6 budget amendments that I'd like to offer.
Okay.
Since my colleague has been successful in this one, I would like to follow her up. I don't entertain much prospect of success, but I think it's worth the trying. And I would ask, what is the best way to do this? I have some basic budget principles I'd like to offer, and then 6 amendments to the budget. May I offer them all and put them up for a vote one at a time?
Why don't you combine them all and see if we want to take them out? Take one out at a
You can always
time.
give it a try. It should be an entertaining discussion either way.
Because I may convince some of you on one of them, that's why.
Okay.
You can certainly do them one at a time, Dave.
Okay, thank you. I would propose a couple of, 3 basic principles for our budget. The first one is no tax increase. We're talking about a 1% property tax increase and a car tab. I can see this car tab being set one year and raised the next. It's councilmatic. It's easy to do. In my opinion, it's also unconscionable. I think the city residents are paying sufficient taxes that we ought to be able to fix the doggone streets without charging them a car tab. The third principle is, or the second principle is, no budget revisions. The one tonight's an acceptable one for 2 reasons. One, it doesn't take anything out of the reserves, which is what usually comes forward. And the second one is, it's going to save money for us as opposed to cost us money. So, these types of administrative actions are very praiseworthy, and I think it's wonderful that you're bringing this forward. The third principle I would offer is, for budgets guidance is to define a balanced budget so that expenditures are equal to or less than income without taking funds from reserves, which we do so often. A couple of years ago, we saved, I think it was $238,000 at the end of the year. And boy, I thought that was wonderful because I was just newly on the council. Son of a gun, in March, the 1st of March, which was a little over 2 months later, here comes a budget amendment for $560,000 to take money out of the reserve to do additional things. Get a budget and live with it. So, having said that, I would propose a series of amendments.
Dave, before you get there, just one clarification. There is no funding in here that's coming from car tabs.
It's not part of the budget.
There is nothing in the budget that has to do with car tabs.
I'm glad to hear that. I've been gone for a week, so I've missed a couple of things. I raised the same question that Mr. Olson raised. How long are we going to maintain an empty police slot? And the question I've got is, why can't we fill that position from income? So I would move to delay the budget passage from tonight to a future date, obviously before the 31st of the month when it's due, so that the administration can figure out how to do that. How can we fund a police officer? And I would offer that amendment.
Second. Is that a motion?
It is.
I thought I recognized the motion here.
I'm sorry, I lost what the motion actually is.
So to delay passage of the budget in order for administration to come back with a solution to funding an additional police officer without, out of revenues and not through any other means.
Point of clarification. Was that the third or the fourth amendment?
That's only the second one.
Oh, just the second one? Oh.
Patience.
Or you're just doing the amendments one at a time?
Oh.
That was his first amendment. The other two were just based,
All of those items?
those were just
Councilmember?
foundational, he said.
Oh, and they were all together in one amendment?
No, we haven't gotten them all yet. This is the first one.
I'm
We got
confused.
four more to go.
This is actually the second one. The first one was the feral cats.
Oh,
Oh, okay.
okay, so I've got a motion and a second to delay passage of the budget until administration can come back with a funding solution for an officer out of revenues. Do I have that correct, Dave?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Joyce?
This council passed a levy, I mean, we didn't pass the levy, but we created the funding mechanism for the public to fund another police officer, and they voted it down. Seems to me the responsibility for a police officer was given to the community, and they didn't want it. So I feel like at this point in time, we did our responsibility on funding a police officer. We gave the city the means to do that, and they didn't.
Dave?
And I thank you for your support for putting that forward to the people for the vote. My interpretation of the vote differs a little bit from yours, in that I think what the people said was, we don't want another police officer if it's going to raise taxes. My impression was that there were people in favor of having another police officer, but not if they had to increase their taxes to pay for it.
It's their money in the budget. Their money is funding that police officer, whether it comes from whether they voted for it or we finagle our budget to meet that expense.
Yes, but what I'm saying is, I think the people are in favor of another police officer. And I know the police department's in favor of another police officer because they're wearing themselves a little thin.
I understand that, but it was voted down.
Brent?
What was voted down, though? That's what's at issue.
We did a poll on public safety. I don't recall exactly what the numbers were, but to my recollection, the public's concern about crime and matters of such was not that high. They were more concerned about streets and economic development, basically. So I don't know that we can really, am I correct, Mr. Administrator?
Yes, in the community survey, so that data set, for what it's worth, it was a survey. The two highest priorities in order were streets and roads, transportation, and economic development as the highest priorities for the community. I think the council was responsive in both of those ways with the direction to us in the budget. On questions around public safety, regarding levels of satisfaction with the level of police presence in neighborhoods, crime prevention. These are on a 1 to 5 scale. People that answered a 4 or 5, meaning that they're satisfied with a 4 or 5, they were very satisfied. The percentages were in the 60% to 70% range. So a strong majority of survey respondents, and it was a statistically significant survey, indicated that they were satisfied or very satisfied in that area. They were similarly satisfied in the other area of public safety with fire and emergency medical services. I think you can interpret the vote to pass the renewal of the fire and emergency services levy as consistent with that survey result. They were satisfied with the current level of service, and they voted to maintain the current level of service. On questions, there was another question about, is the service the same, or should it be a little higher or a little bit lower? Again, in the public safety area, majority of the respondents indicated we needed more services in transportation and economic development. There were the one exception on the public safety side where they were primarily indicating that the service level was adequate and that they were satisfied was in code enforcement. And we've talked about that. Part of the proceeds from that levy would have gone to enhanced code enforcement efforts. So with the failure of that, we're going to do what we can programmatically and with our tools to try to do that. That's what the survey said. It is what it is. It was.
Well, it could sort of comports with what the result of the levy vote was, but it was very close in the end.
It was very close, and I think it's reasonable to interpret that to say that they did not want to raise taxes to pay for a police officer, because that was the question that was asked. But I think there's some reasonable interpretation there that it is consistent with the survey results around the level of satisfaction with the level of that service in our community at this point. Now, that could change. I hope that we will do that survey every 2 years. But you look at what's going on in the community, and you look at our transportation infrastructure, our roads, and we heard about that some tonight from one of our citizens, one of our neighbors, and the economy. You can see why transportation and economic development would be high priorities for our citizens today.
Connie Jo.
Can you help me remember how much overtime we're spending on our police officers? Because I know that was part of the issue, that the chief was saying we have men that are overworked and the budget's being taxed with overtime. So I'm thinking, could we eliminate the overtime and bring in somebody and use that overtime?
We would have to look at how much we've been spending on overtime. One of the problems, as you'll recall this year, was that we have not been fully staffed, even with the current level of staffing that we have in police. We've had 2 officers, or 2 vacancies for a variety of reasons where we weren't able to act to fill those vacancies. And we are just now reaching the conclusion, and it was announced here, and you may have saw in the paper that we have a new officer that will be coming on board. However, it's an entry-level officer, and that person will have to go to the academy. And then another situation is taking care of itself, and then that person potentially will be back on the street, or some other situation will manifest. We've still got a little while longer to do that. So the overtime that we've been incurring in 2014 is not a function of 20 versus 19. It's a function of 19 versus 17. And it has been very difficult, and it has been taxing on our police force, and they have stepped up admirably to the call to protect us. And
how long is the academy?
Call it 6 months. By the time you get done with that, the FTO process, everything all wrapped in there, you got 12 weeks after it, or before it, if they can do some of it prior to them going off to the academy.
We're hopeful that, in fact, I know the chief is, because the academy starts when it starts, this individual who will be joining us is able to join us prior to the start of the academy, so they're going to get to do some of the administrative type training and learn about our organization, then go off to the academy, and then come back, and we'll be a little bit more efficient than we normally are. But yes, a lot of training. Person comes with a really strong military background, which is helpful. Many of our officers have that, in fact.
The reality, though, of an answer to your question in regards to the overtime, no, you won't eliminate overtime. You can potentially manage it down through putting another officer in there, but in a number of our contracts, even in public works, if we change somebody's work schedule, we've got to give them a set work schedule. If we change that work schedule inside of 2 weeks, somebody becomes sick, somebody is out hiking and breaks an arm, breaks a leg, and we've got to bring somebody in to replace those, or their shift on there, we get to pay a differential in there. And that would be the same thing as overtime. So you're coming in, you're working 11 hours just like you normally would, but it's different than your shift. You get paid extra for doing that. So there's no way to anticipate those, obviously, especially whether you're dealing with 10 employees or whether you're dealing with 21 employees in the police department. So you will never see that line item be zero. It just...
Well, I realize it'll never be zero, but I can imagine that it's going to take close to all of 2015 to get these 2 officers up and running.
No. One officer may
6
come back and
months.
go right on the road. Your other one, you're talking June. And really,
Fully.
when you look at the issues that surround overtime, it really comes down to an officer at some point, or officers at some points during their shift, are into a scenario that causes them to go overtime.
Oh,
And
sure.
in the police world, it's not something as simple as, Jennifer, I'm going to go on my break, will you go ahead and take care of this investigation, and I'm going to go back here for 20 minutes and disappear, or my shift's up, I'm going to hand it off to somebody else. They take it to conclusion or until the detectives take over the situation itself. So it's not as
I
easy as
understand.
putting another body into there, and it's just naturally going to eliminate stuff. I would almost guarantee you we could put 25 officers on the street, not in administrative roles, but on the street, and we could honestly look at ourselves and say we could still use more. I know, especially Mr. Olson loves to portray me as not wanting to add any officers, and there is nothing that could even be closer to being a false impression. I would love to do that. I would love to be able to tell you that you've got $1 million a year to take care of roads, and we don't have it. There's a balancing act between everything that we do in this community, and at some point, we've got to make those decisions on where we're going to balance all of those. It would be completely different if I had Chief Mitchell in front of us saying, we absolutely need 1 or 2 more officers. We absolutely need it.
At the Public Safety Committee, he said that. We asked
would
him,
hope
do we need another officer?
Oh, that answers absolutely. I can tell you that. I'm
Well-
not the chief of police.
So, so basically, he said, yes, we do. But if we have 2 others, because of the circumstances, which we're all aware of, we were down 2, and these 2 are coming back, being filled by June of 2015,
Or sooner.
or sooner.
Well, they'll be filled before that, but
Not
it's just a question of
necessarily
how-
on the,
how soon they're fully on the road on
Right.
their own.
thank
Dave?
you.
Well, I think it's clear that our police force, our police officers have stepped up and done a wonderful job, and the public is happy with the job that they're doing. My primary concern is to continue that and not put our police officers and the public at risk. And I'm referring now to data that's provided by the United States Army on fatigue in combat and the effects of that. And I've been in combat and I've experienced this. If you have 6 days in a row in which you lose 2 hours of sleep a night and you're down to 6 hours a night, your effectiveness is degraded by 20%. So you're operating at 80%. You're making your decisions based on 80%. Your physical stamina is reduced by 20%. In short, you're 0.8 of what you ought to be, and what you started out to be, and what you need to be on the street. What our officers go through on the street is very, very, very similar to combat. They deal with hostile people. They deal with the possibility of getting shot every time they go out on a domestic disturbance call. And if I remember correctly, domestic disturbance calls are the most prevalent that our officers answer, and our officers answer more calls than any other department more calls per officer than any other department in Clark County, possibly in Southwest Washington. So at this point, having heard all of this, may I call for the question?
I don't see anybody else raising their hands. So I've got a motion and a second to delay passage of the budget until we can effectively fund another police officer out of existing revenues. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
No.
Motion fails.
Oh,
Next.
I'm back on. Thank you.
Back on.
Thank
You're
you.
still on.
Okay. And I appreciate my colleagues taking the time to consider my concerns. Social services. It's a county, state, and federal mission. We're not funded for it. We don't have the tax income stream for it. We do have a position or a provision in the Washington State Constitution which allows us to do it for charitable purposes. I don't think there's a lot of case law on that, and I don't think we're in violation of it. Nevertheless, it's not our mission, and we could use that money elsewhere. So here's my proposal. I move to delete the $7,500 cash subsidy to social services across the street while retaining the estimated $15,000 in support for the building, its operation, and its maintenance. We're actually subsidizing these folks for about $22,500 a year. And my proposal is to cut the cash subsidy and maintain the building subsidy. I so move.
Okay.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second to remove $7,500 direct appropriation to the Social Services Center. Council discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion fails.
Most of these are predetermined, but you have to make the effort.
You're just fine.
Number 4, I would propose to cut the travel council budget to $3,500 and restrict it to training for new council members. If we want to gallivant around the state, hobnobbing with our fellow elected officials, we should pay for it ourselves. The taxpayers should not have to fund this. So I move to cut the council travel budget down to $3,500.
Second.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
What does it currently stand at then?
It's $14,000?
With
Council?
travel and training combined might be.
Oh, travel and training. Nope. It's $5,600. Travel and training.
Ms. Forsberg says you are correct.
Got my budget.
So I've got a motion. And Connie Jo, was that a second? Or-
Yeah, it was a second.
Motion and a second to reduce the council, just travel, Dave, or travel and training? It's two different line items. I
Travel
believe.
and training.
Travel and training to a total of $3,500 and restrict to only new council members. Does that get at it?
That does it. Thank you.
Council discussion.
For a $36 million, well, including utilities, a $36 million budget, I think $5,600 to train and for travel and training for its board of directors of this corporation is not unreasonable.
Yeah, in fact,
Connie Jo?
Is there some way we can, I don't know how to express this, if we've been there once or done it, is there a way we can limit the amount of times we go back to the same types of classes, same types of events? I mean, it seems reasonable to me that after you've done it once, you could refresh online, you could do a lot of different things rather than, what was the word you used, gallivant? Across the whole country, because they are usually somewhere else because they rotate around the state. If someone has been once, maybe twice, I mean, maybe we should limit the amount of times that an individual goes to a training, a specific training.
Yeah, I believe the short answer to your question is, I believe yes. Council by policy can choose to adopt policies.
That
as
seems
they fit.
reasonable.
The longer answer, though, other than the really the newly electeds training, most of what's available for you to go to changes on an annual basis. Some of them, not much, or not as much as people would like. AWC conference, for example, you won't see this year. You might see one or two items that were on this last year's conference. All the rest of them are going to be different. So, Joyce.
It seems to me that most of us don't want to gallivant. We have busy lives, and I know I look through each training that's provided, and is it redundant, or do I feel I need to do something else to improve my ability on the council? So I think to a certain extent we need to trust each other in our own judgment of what we need to know to perform our jobs. And sometimes, I mean, when you're new, you don't know much of anything, but even after a couple years, there are still things you need to know. And this is not an unreasonable amount. And I think most of us either spend it or don't spend it as we see fit in our own lives as a council person.
I concur. I don't really think that we should be monitoring. There's funds in the travel and training fund, and I don't really see us going over on a yearly basis, unless Ms. Forsberg can correct me on that. Are we going over?
Possibly in a year where there's a lot of new council members, but
Well, we've been through those years. Like
Yeah.
2013, I mean, we only spent, about 3,500 total of the 5,600. So I mean, it's not as if we're abusing those two accounts.
so there's,
I would have to look at actuals for 14, but yeah, looking
I
at
don't
the
have the
2013 actuals, it doesn't appear that you are.
Yeah,
But
I mean, these
I
are
don't have year-to-date for 14.
your colleague. You have to have respect for your colleagues, and if they feel that a training or a class or especially AWC event is significant, that they would like to take time and travel there and spend, several days learning and bringing information back to us to educate us about what's new and what they've learned, and I would have to support that.
Other comments, questions? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to reduce the council travel and training budget to $3,500 total and restrict to new council members only.
and what is the dollar figure again, right now?
56. Just so you know, there's no magic to that. It's 7 of you times $800 each. It's an estimate. So, hearing no other comments, all those in favor of reducing the amount?
Aye.
All those against?
Nay.
Motion fails.
I'm down to my last one.
Okay.
And I do these, by the way, on the principle that 1,000 here and 1,000 there, and pretty soon you're talking about real money. And we're always talking about money here. The last one. For 2 years, we've been saying that the Utility Assistance Program had a goal of being self-sustainable, funding to be coming from donations from the public, and it hasn't happened. If you want to be charitable, use your own funds, not the taxpayers. I would propose to delete this funding.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to delete the Utility Assistance Fund. Council discussion. Joyce?
As I understand it, this is not the taxpayers' money. This fund came from late fees paid by people who had not paid their utility bills on time. This was not general fund or taxpayers' money. It is a late fee that has funded this assistance program.
I think that's basically correct.
That's how we got the starting dollar amount, was we
Which is
took an
almost all of
average.
it, isn't it?
Right, we've been averaging roughly $90,000 to $100,000 worth of late fee revenue, for lack of a better word, into the utility funds, and that's how Vancouver had done their program as well, was they based it on late fees, as that's not programmed into the current rate structure, so therefore it wouldn't affect the rate structure of the remaining fund.
And so far, we've only funded it 1 year.
Correct,
Funded it for 1 year,
we
that's
funded it
rollable,
in
but we've
advance,
done
and
it
it's
annually.
in its own fund, so that it'll continue to roll. And if council were to close the fund, it would go back to the utility fund, not the general fund.
How much has gone out in 2014? Rough,
Well, we started it with roughly, was it 96? 95,000, I can't remember what we
95
started.
even.
And we're down to 88,000, and we
and
started
that's
it.
in a year.
We started at the end of, I think 2,500, I think, went out in last year, so the remainder would be this year.
So it's not being utilized heavily.
No, we do have, it's an emergency assistance program. It's not a revolving plan, so individuals that are on an emergency basis, it's a one-time within a 12-month period that folks can get the assistance. So it's not something that they can use every cycle. They have to meet the requirements of being on the shut-off list or delinquent, and they can only request it once every 12 months.
Thank you.
Up to $250.
Connie Jo?
I think you may have just said it, but would you remind me that what is allowed, how are we allowed to spend that money?
It's based on the Constitution of being able to help the poor and infirmed. So the individuals that meet the requirements, they have to provide their income statements.
If we didn't have this program and the $90,000 went back to the general fund, what are we allowed to use
Does
those?
it go to the general fund?
It wouldn't
I
go
thought
to
you
the.
said that a second ago.
No, I said it would not go back to the
Would
general
not
fund.
go.
It would go to the utility fund
Utility fund, and be spent how?
for the utility programs. It's not programmed revenue, as we don't expect. We can't expect to get it, because if everybody paid their bill on time, then we wouldn't receive those revenues. So it would support
Utility doesn't
utility
need
expenses.
$90,000 to $100,000 a year?
We'll
I know we-
definitely take it,
I
but
realize we can't anticipate it, but it's,
it wouldn't change the
shown a
overall
pattern.
rates. Because we can't rely on it every year. So therefore, you can't program that revenue into the rate structure.
Put it in
So-
reserve, couldn't you?
It would go to the reserve and go to probably capital and assist with those programs. So it would count as revenue, but it wouldn't necessarily lower the rates.
so if I went to reserves,
Utility reserves.
utility reserves, you save it up till it's a certain degree and certain level, and then you would, what, pay something off? Build something?
We
We would, for example, if you did this evening as part of this budget process, when we go out for additional debt in the first quarter next year, remember the program we have to do all of these things, we would potentially be able to go out for $90,000 less debt. Or $88,000 less debt. But in our fee model, that amount in one time is not enough to change how the rates have to be set. It wouldn't materially affect that. But it's
Over time,
$88,000.
annually?
But again, it's not an annual. This is not an annual expenditure. This is a one-time expenditure. Now, at the rate that we're going, in a year, we're basically spending $5,000 or $6,000 out of this fund. So it's about a 15-year program right now at that rate. So maybe it's a 10-year program, and then those funds will be gone. We're hoping that over time we'll begin to see people contributing to the fund.
That'll only happen if there's some sort of public relations.
Right, and so we are
So
taking some efforts to
is
try
that
to-
happening?
Yes, we're trying to do that. But we can't guarantee that people will donate to the program either. So we can't program that revenue, but it would extend the life of the program. So without any changes, I would anticipate the council wouldn't be looking at the program for 10 years maybe, just based on what we're seeing. Now, that could change. It's only a year old.
Jennifer?
No, the $90,000 that we originally used to fund the program at the beginning Was that several years worth of these fees built up, or was that just 1 year?
That's approximately what we collect annually.
Okay,
And
and
late
so
fee revenue.
say the $90,000 that we potentially might collect, I mean, I don't know how it's coming in this year. It's just in a,
Correct, that
going
will.
by what you're telling me. But that will automatically go into utility reserves.
Correct.
So that's, you've already budgeted for that for 2015 as well, or do you not budget for that as revenue at all?
We do budget for it because it's a revenue that comes in, but it's not programmed, like I said, into the rate model.
Right.
So it will go into reserves, and it will be revenue to the utilities. But we don't count on it because it could come in at zero.
It'll help us reach our system reinvestment target a little sooner, potentially.
Interesting. Well, I just one more comment before I pass the microphone. My colleague's proposal is to eliminate the program, is that correct? Or to reduce the amount in the program?
To eliminate it.
Eliminate it, okay. Well, I couldn't support that, but I might support reducing the amount that's sitting in the fund, just because we don't really need to have $90,000 sitting there. I mean, we could fund the program every year
Annually.
with a smaller amount, knowing that, we just don't have a whole lot of people that are qualifying at this point.
Did I hear an amendment?
No, I can't amend an amendment. You're already amending. How many amendments are we dealing with already? Is this the third one?
5.
Oh, number 5, okay.
This is the last one.
So you could bring it up after we vote this down.
Something that we've talked about, I know, I don't know how my colleagues feel about it, but we've talked about it.
Well, we spend all this time talking about a few $1,000s, yet we plop $90,000 that's going to sit there for 15 years. I like your idea, if anything, to change the amount, fund it annually, do a really good PR, and get the public involved. Put a deadline on whether the public wants to be involved. If the public doesn't want to be involved, then maybe the public doesn't want to pay people's water bills and so forth. If there's no response from the public, that means that they're not interested in the program.
Okay, right now I've got a motion and a second on the floor to delete the utility assistance fund.
Call for the question?
Any other comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion fails.
Make a new motion there, Dave. Make a new motion.
I'll leave that to others.
I do still have a motion on the floor to pass, post, and publish the ordinance as amended in the usual manner. Other discussion? Connie Jo?
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion concerning, well, I better get my reading glasses on. Here's it. The Emergency Utility Assistance Program that we have, that we reduce the dollar amount to $10,000. And I don't know how to put this,
Funded on a yearly basis.
funded on a yearly basis. And if the public does not respond to our public relations campaign, then we need to shut it down. So that's-
I would support that if you stopped after the word "if,"
Yeah.
because that's that's binding a future council.
Exactly.
Well, everything we vote on binds a future council until they choose to undo it. So,
I think you can get somewhere with the first part.
yeah, I understand what you're saying. Okay, I'll stop at the if.
I've got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a motion and a second to reduce the Utility Emergency Assistance Program to $10,000. Correct?
And to be revisited on an annual basis.
You do that in the budget every year. I
Okay.
don't know that you'd...
Okay.
So I've got a motion and a second to reduce the Utility Emergency Assistance Program to $10,000. Council discussion.
I guess there need to be, but it needs to go somewhere though, right? So it needs to go to, would it automatically go to
That's an
reserves?
automatic.
It'll go back to the utility operational balance. Yeah, we'll amend the budget to show that as a one-time revenue.
Okay.
Fund transfer revenue.
Okay, so comments, questions? Paul?
It seems to me that this is a change without substance, and therefore,
It's not the first time.
true, but it's rearranging the deck chairs.
Any other questions, comments? Okay, I've got a motion and a second to reduce the Utility Emergency Assistance Program to $10,000.
I have one more comment.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I did notice in my budget on page 87 that under highlights, it does say the intent is for citizens to donate funds to keep the program operational. So I do see where, reducing the amount, knowing, at the second year into the fund, reducing the amount, knowing that we're, not having that much of a demand, and, hoping and stating that the intent is for the citizens to donate
Thank
funds
you,
to keep the
Jennifer.
program operational. I mean, that's actually our
Thank you.
intent here. So I'm going to advise in support of reducing the amount in the fund and returning the funds to, or the revenues, late fee revenues, to the utility fund. So that's all I want to say.
Paul?
I'm just curious, has anyone else donated to the fund? I
You're
have.
asking
Are you
individually?
looking at us as individuals?
Individually, yes.
This isn't the place for
Well,
that.
I mean, that's what you're talking about, is having people donate to the fund, and you're complaining that they haven't. Have you?
No, I'm not complaining.
No, I didn't
of
mean-
it.
I didn't mean
I'm
you.
just stating that
not
there's
the
a,
place
it's
to ask
just
them to
a
donate.
sentence. It's a sentence
It's ridiculous.
on page 87.
Okay.
That's all.
Dave?
With the exception of my support for the Columbia Gorge Humane Society, which is an openly known, I prefer to keep my financial arrangements to myself. Call for the questions?
Again, I've got a motion and a second to reduce the Utility Emergency Assistance Program to a $10,000 level. Any last comments, questions?
Yeah. As Jennifer just read that with the intention, would you reread that, please?
Yes.
With the
It says
intention.
the intent is for citizens to donate funds to keep the program operational. It doesn't say when or.
See, that's what I was
There's
trying
no
to
deadline.
define a moment ago. Eventually, we need to define that. If tonight's not the night, let's lower the amount and let's deal with this. It's like I said, do some PR and let the public make donations. If they don't donate, it's a sign that they're not interested.
I think that's an
in-
incorrect statement. I
Well-
don't, it doesn't matter to me how much outreach you try and do. We don't have a campaign to promote this. I would have a hard time ever looking anybody in the face and saying the public doesn't support this. I think it will still come back to.
What words do you use?
That a majority of the public don't even know about it.
I prefaced every one of these, each time I've said this, once you've done a good PR campaign.
Won't,
You've put it out in front of the public.
to me, it won't matter.
You put it out to a vote. I mean, come on. The- We're speaking on behalf of the public, saying, we want to do this program until you step up. But we're not putting any time frame on it. Yet in our original proposal, it says with the intention that the public make these donations. So I'm just wondering, why is it stated that way? It's not defined, it's not being allowed to be defined. Because we don't want to say that the public wouldn't be interested. Well, they vote with votes, and they get informed through the emails, through our bills, through different opportunities.
Jennifer?
For me, what has sort of changed my mind on this issue about bringing funds back to the utility is, hearing what they could be used for otherwise, if it was returned to the utility. I mean, it's nice to hear what they could be used for otherwise if they weren't sitting here for the next 10 years. That's what's changing
No, I
my mind.
appreciate that. I appreciate that.
And, if we run through these funds in, 2015, and we need to look at potentially putting more money into the fund, I'm assured by Ms. Forsberg that we get $90,000 a year. We could put some more in there.
On average.
That's what I'm saying.
I guess it's a principle.
But we don't need to have it sitting there if we can use it in some other way with the utility.
It's just that you have some people, like this lady that came up and spoke, and these are utility rates, water bills that people never expected when they bought their homes. I mean, they've gone up that significantly. And if that fund can keep somebody in their home because of, I don't know, possible poor planning in the past, for such significant jumps, we should do that.
This is just a
We owe it.
one-time
We owe it to the city.
It's not going to make them lose their home. It's just
Well-
a water bill one time.
Right. Every 12 months, yeah.
Yeah. And they have to qualify based on
Right.
income.
Well,
Part of my interest in keeping this program is that I'm one of the ones who looks at the detail every week or at least several times a month of the submissions from these people. And in most cases, these are not people, I mean, there certainly are people who are living on the margin, but they also typically have suffered an unexpected, let's just say, setback. They've lost a job. Somebody who was working 3 part-time jobs loses one of them and can no longer pay their water bill until they get another third job. Out of kind of general decency and humanity, I think that we have a responsibility to care for these people. These are not people standing out on an I-5 ramp with a sign begging for money. That's not what these people are. I mean, there was a family of 6 that had an annual income of $13,000 a year. How do you do that? And it wasn't that they weren't working hard. They were. And I just think that out of kind of decency and fairness, that those of us who are fortunate enough to have, by luck of our birth, the training and the skills and the background and the resources or whatever, that this will never be an issue for us. We can talk about poor planning, but if you don't have anything, you don't have any slack in your budget to plan with. And that's my real impression of looking at through these people's story. And so my heart goes out to them, and I support this program, and I just think it's easier to keep it fully funded than try and fight about it every year.
Joyce?
Where is the money? Where is the $88,000? Is it in a special account, or is it where you can use it and it's an accounting mechanism?
It's currently in its own fund. So the O&M utility water sewer account is Fund 401, and then this fund is Fund 631. So the funds are accounted for in a different area than the O&M.
So we're talking about the year 2015 of making it $10,000, correct?
Mhm.
I'm not opposed to cutting the amount that's in a fund, but $10,000, if you have a particularly hard year, may be cutting it short. I too read the forms every week. They don't come through as often as I thought they would when we established this, but the ones that come through can make you cry. It's kind of our humanity, I believe, too, and what we think of ourselves as people. But I would like to see you raise the amount to $20,000. If it's not used, it's not used, but it means there isn't a large amount of money sitting in a fund that the city can't use. But it still gives enough in there because we're coming close to $10,000 a year, roughly.
About half of that, aren't we? We're about half of that.
5.
We're like 5, she said.
5-ish.
5-ish? Oh, okay. Oh, okay, I thought she said
And
8.
we can vote on it and raise it if it's necessary.
Oh, okay. Okay, then I'm comfortable with the 10 then, but I would certainly not stop the program.
I concur.
Dave?
I've heard a great deal about humanity, and I agree with it. I just think that for charitable purposes, charity begins at home, and I think that we should be donating out of our personal resources rather than the taxpayers' resources to do things like this.
It isn't the taxpayers' resources, Dave.
It's the water payers, the water ratepayers'
It's the
resources.
the late water
That's-
payers, right?
Okay, the ratepayers as opposed to the taxpayers. Thank you for that correction.
Yeah.
It's a technicality, but
But
again,
it's available. Once it's paid by the late fees, then it's available.
I don't want to go around
To the
feeling good about
taxpayers.
myself by spending the taxpayers' money. If I want to feel good about myself, I'm going to spend my own money.
I'm reluctant to get into, we've gotten into philosophical discussion here about the whole poor and infirm and the state constitution. You know, that state constitution was adopted in 1889, and they found it necessary before the New Deal, for all the Great Society and the welfare programs, that there ought to be some provision in government for taking care of the poor and infirm. And this is something that's been on the books for 125 years or so. And so I don't have a problem with it. And, you know, my free market credentials are pretty good. Frederick Hayek wrote Road to Serfdom in 1944, which restored free market economics, and even he talked about a social safety net. So I think anyone in the mainstream would look at this as a reasonable program.
Dave?
I guess I'm not in the mainstream.
Oh, you're not.
Okay, I've got a motion. I've got a motion and a second to reduce the utility emergency assistance program to $10,000. Any additional questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. And I still have a motion and second to pass, post, and publish the ordinance as, with the 2 amendments that have passed in the usual manner. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Maybe contrary to what some folks think, I enjoy these discussions. Thank you very much for your deliberations on the budget. Councilman Shoemaker, I think anytime any council member brings questions, amendments like that forward, you're looking and asking good questions.
And I appreciate the chance to talk about Hayek at a council meeting.
Not often you get that. Out of a $52-53 million budget for this year, you did not take too long to pass this. That's something that you should do with a lot of thought and a lot of deliberation, and we, myself, the staff, appreciate the input and also some of the additional discussion, as lively as it can be, going into that. So, thank you. With that, we'll go to item E, an appointment of council members to the Appointments Committee. As you know, each year by your code, not just by, or not by your council rules, there's a provision in our code that every December, the mayor and 2 of the sitting council members are formed into an Appointments Committee to basically go through and try and put some semblance to a beginning of a recommendation to council for those council committees and some of the other obligations that the city has on boards and commissions. So this is that time to figure out who that committee is going to be or reaffirm it, however you care to do. Brent?
I'd like to suggest that Councilmember McDaniel for this committee. She hasn't been on it for a while, I don't believe.
Took the words right out of my mouth.
Okay, I've got Jennifer's name. Dave?
I'd like to nominate Paul Greenlee.
Thank you.
I think he's among the best qualified, and I'd like to punish him for his remarks tonight.
Duly noted.
Any other suggestions? You've only got 2 slots.
2 slots, 2 nominees.
And no, you can't change the 2 slots. It's in code, so you can't change that.
Are there any other council members interested in sitting on the Appointments Committee?
Well, I might be.
I nominate Brent Belker.
Any other nominees? Looks like we're going to have us an election. City Clerk, how would you like to do this?
You know, Mr. Mayor, I think I'll just withdraw rather than, that's fine.
You sure?
Yeah, I'm sure.
Okay, any other nominees? I would entertain a motion and a second for the appointment to the Appointments Committee.
So moved.
Second.
I'm assuming that your motion and second are for Jennifer and Paul to fill that
Yes.
out.
Thank you.
Excellent. I've got a motion and a second for council members McDaniel and Greenlee to sit on the Appointments Committee. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. And now we're to item F, a continuation or resolution to the discussion started at the workshop meeting in regards to the Regional Transportation Council representation for 2015 and moving forward. I did, to give you barely any additional information, I did chat with Mayor Higgins in between our meetings. They discussed this during their workshop as well, and his reply was that their council have basically said, we will follow the City of Washougal's lead. So they're basically letting you make the decision. There you go. Joyce?
As I understand that, then that, our lead is, we would get the seat, right? If we don't.
There, what his information was basically saying if the City of Washougal, if you all choose that you would like to have that seat for 2015 and start the rotation over, that the City of Camas is fine with that. If your decision is that you would like to leave that with Melissa for this year to serve out if she's elected as the chair, they're fine with that as well. So they're leaving it, they're not sending a direction your way other than they would like to go with however you would like to have it done.
And if we vote that we want our seat back, who goes forward? Who is,
That would then be a question for the Appointments Committee as a recommendation to the council to select.
thank you.
So that would go into that queue.
I was not totally clear about that.
Can I ask
Yes.
if anybody is interested in sitting on RTC? Can I ask that tonight?
Absolutely.
Anybody interested?
Paul?
I'm certainly interested. Having said that, as much as I would love to have the seat, I reiterate that I think it is in the best interest of Washougal for Melissa to be chair. Despite the fact that RTC is largely ministerial, not legislative, a lot of the issues that people bring up, they kind of misunderstand. For example, you asked the question about the third bridge. That cannot become part of a metropolitan transportation plan until there is a stack of studies and surveys which are out of the hands of the RTC. For example, you can't put that on the MTP until you have population and growth plans as part of the Clark County Comp Plan, something that you do not have. And the danger is that if you kind of charge forward without touching all of the legal bases, that you end up without a valid plan, which means that all of Clark County, Skamania County, and Klickitat County would be ineligible for federal highway funds and also for a big piece of the state of Washington highway funds. It's a very complicated edifice, if you will. You can't just pull out one piece or shove one piece into it on short notice. It is on the work plan for the staff, for Matt Ransom and the staff, to develop the materials necessary to ask the question about a third bridge. But it's premature at this point until you have all of that data. There's also, compounding that problem, there is a movement afoot to essentially delete all of the work from the existing MTIP that was done by the CRC, which includes not just engineering designs, but very broad-based population growth plans and transportation plans that are in fact part of the Clark County Comp Plan and the comp plans of all of the cities in Clark County. And making all of those pieces fit together is, thank the dear Lord, we have a great staff. But the board of directors is really not in the kind of legislative position that you would think on that kind of question. The way that a project comes forward, for example, there's a project up in Ridgefield having to do with improving the road that runs from I-5 into downtown. That project is brought forward by Ridgefield to, let's call it an engineering committee. It's not really an engineering committee. Camas brings theirs forward, we bring our, Washougal brings theirs forward, and those plans are vetted inside that committee, which then produces a list of possible projects, which the RTC then establishes a priority on. But again, just like with our capital facilities plan, the priority list is a bit of a misnomer, because very often you're applying for funding for a particular project, which may be 4 or 5 on the list, but if you get funding for that project and you don't get funding for number 1, guess which project gets built? So it's, Regional Transportation Council is really not a legislative position. It's almost entirely ministerial. Because you have not only Clark County and all of its cities, but also Skamania County, Klickitat County, and the 4 Oregon metro counties are all represented in this plan. So it's, you know, it's one of those things. I just think, that said, that Ridgefield, Battleground, and La Center, and in fact Clark County, have a huge list of projects that they would like to do in North County. And while we won't be able to run roughshod over those needs, if we want anything in East County, I think we're better served if we have a chair or a vice chair from East County.
Dave?
Mr. Mayor, I would move to make the confirmation of Camus's current representative contingent upon her election as chairman. Without that, I would move to, I would suggest that we bring that seat back to Washougal and decide who's going to be our representative.
I think that's an appropriate motion.
Yeah, second.
So I've got a motion and a second confirming Melissa Smith, Councilmember Smith from the city of Camas, as our RT representative, as long as she is elected chair for 2015.
Yes.
Can we
Which
leave
is
it at-
tomorrow night, right?
Yeah, can we leave it at
Yes,
that?
that happens tomorrow night.
We can leave it at that, because then that raises the question of
Then we can bring it
the seat comes back, and we then have to decide who to do.
Exactly.
No point.
Exactly.
But
Okay. So,
There being very few volunteers.
And
well, nobody ever told, oh, you said you would.
I was just going to say, I don't want to make it part of the same motion, but I would also suggest that similarly, that Councilman Freeman is our designee through this year on C-Tran. C-Tran, my understanding, and Mr. Mayor, you may be better up on this than I am, but my understanding is that the composition committee made its recommendation, which would lead to a separate chair for Washougal.
Point of order. Is not a motion required to be on a single subject?
Right. I apologize. So I've got a motion and a second to confirm Councilmember Smith from Camas as our RT representative for 2015, contingent on her being elected as chair. Discussion. Connie Jo?
Couple questions. Tomorrow night's the election. Probably because we passed our budget, we're not going to meet again in December. When do we have to have this finalized?
I don't think there's any date due. The organizations,
RTC?
both that and C-Tran, want to know before the first of the year who is our representative. Yeah, but you know what? If you're
We don't have an
continuing to go to
answer.
C-Tran for a month or two and Melissa's
Okay.
continued, that's kind of the way we've done it so far, frankly, for this year, because we kind of took those out of the rotation and just kind of did this so. There is no hard and fast rule that once you select somebody on a certain date that you cannot change that individual, so.
So, number 2. This is nothing personal about Melissa, but this is about how she votes. My experience has been that Washougal, as far as, let's just say as my example on C-Tran, that Washougal and Camas have been complete opposites. In the bus rapid transit, in Columbia River Crossing. And so to put Melissa back in the RTC, who will very likely vote complete opposite of how we feel. It's at least as how our citizens have voted. I'm not comfortable with putting her back in there. We talked earlier at the workshop about it's time for it to come back to Washougal and have someone represent Washougal's opinions and not the way Camus's opinions have been falling. I've been right in the middle of the fight for 3 years, and they're complete opposite of everything we voted for as a city and how we've decided as a council to proceed.
Joyce?
If she isn't elected chair, who will be?
Who'll be elected chair?
Mhm.
I have no idea.
That'd be up to RTC.
You don't know, who is there, do we know who else is up there?
Technically, it could be anyone. The recent history has been that there has been a rotation from large city Vancouver,
It could be any one of the voting members.
right, to a county commissioner, to a small city representative, and that
So you're saying
rotation.
next year it's likely it would be a small city? Oh, it's only, we're
That's
only
not-
saying it's necessarily
That's
her
not,
because
that's
she's
not
vice
cast
chair.
in stone. Presently, the other small city representative is Bill Ganley from
Battleground.
Battleground. I'm an alternate, Ron Onslow is an alternate. Certainly, and the two Vancouver members are Jack Berkman, who's the present chair, and Larry Smith. Larry Smith has told me that he has neither the time nor the inclination to take it on. That leaves the 3 county commissioners. Conceivably, the other people who have votes are WashDOT, ODOT, Metro, and a joint representative from Skamania and Klickitat county commissioners. I frankly can't imagine that any one of them would accept the position. Mr. Ham is also a member of RTC. And I just can't imagine that any one of them would accept the position.
And there are some non-voting members, aren't there? Like,
They're
aren't there
all-
senators
yeah,
and
most of 'em.
legislators?
All of the legislators and representatives whose districts are included in Clark, Skamania, and Klickitat County are ex officio members, but they do not have a vote.
They can't chair.
I'm sorry?
Can they chair?
No.
No, no.
So the short answer is nobody knows.
Right.
Okay, so I've got a motion in a second to confirm Councilmember Smith from Camas as our representative for 2015 to RTC, as long as she is elected chair of the organization.
And if she's not, is it a given that if she's not, we want it?
Then it,
Should that be in writing?
well, I've got that on there. If not, it comes back to Washington.
Oh, thank you.
Any more comments, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
And I just want to say, I don't think it actually takes any action on our part, but I would recommend that Connie Jo remain the CTRAN representative until further notice.
I think that's the assumption that we're under.
Right, right, and certainly the appointment process will talk about that.
Okay, brings us to Dave.
She is effectively shackled to that job.
Brings us to the second opportunity in the agenda for any members of the public that would like to comment to council. Good evening again, Harvey.
Good evening, Mayor. Harvey Olson, 3903 R Street. That's letter R, not O-U-R. That's what I tell everybody on the telephone, the address. I would like to suggest a reason why the survey came back. The majority of people were satisfied with police service. Being a retarded or retired Seattle police officer, by this time I've been retired so long, I'm probably retarded. But the basic reason is, and this is the way we in Seattle, when I was a member, how we operated. It's called community service policing. The chief of police here is an excellent chief. The members are experienced and professional, lots of experience. When they go to answer a call, and they handle a lot of calls, the object is to satisfy the complainant. And you do that in a lot of different ways. And the more experience you have, the better off you are in doing this. And the police officer that shows up does his, he satisfies the complainant the best he can by whatever the situation requires him to counsel or arrest or make a report, or you just do all kinds of different things. I can't think of one type of call I did not handle more than once, and in the city of Seattle when I was working patrol. The members here, I have talked to a few of them off and on, chit-chatting with them, and they are very professional, very experienced, and when they show up, they satisfy the customer, the complainant being the customer. So the satisfaction in the survey indicates we have a very good police department, but they're still understaffed. And I should have come to the council a month and a half ago with what I said tonight, but I have been tied up with personal business, visiting somebody, my 77-year friendship contracted, I'm sure Jennifer McDaniel knows about this, cancer. He's undergoing severe chemotherapy, leaves him just laid up for a week and a half after he has it. And I've been up there visiting him and other things of personal business. I wish I could have got down here sooner and given my talk, but I just couldn't do it. But that, I think, would be something to consider, Joyce, Lindsay, Counselor, to the reason the survey came back favorable. And the reason why it failed in the bond issue, I have no idea. Maybe the people feel that the city council should and the mayor should have done their job 3 years ago by putting the 20th police officer back on duty. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons why. And we only had, what, half of the people turned out to vote?
51%.
Yeah, roughly. So you have a bunch of people that just didn't vote. Why, I don't know. But I know I voted for it. Thank you for the time, Mayor. You won't see me for the rest of the year. I'm having major surgery in my mouth, and like Connie Joe Freeman said, that's a good way to keep my mouth shut.
Thanks, Harvey.
Thanks, folks.
Are they cutting your tongue out? Are they cutting your tongue out?
Yeah.
Tom or Diana, anything? Okay. Okay, Mayor's report. I have a couple of items for you. A reminder, this Thursday evening, the lighted Christmas parade downtown and tree lighting, starting at 6 o'clock with the parade and then tree lighting immediately after that. Rose, do you want to give the council a 30-second on what all is planned, how you're doing, how many folks are in the parade, how many lights we've got on the tree?
Are we going to be in the parade? What was the outcome?
We don't know.
Well, the council hasn't provided
The
their
council?
application yet, so,
You have to file an application?
yes.
Okay.
And you have to have lights, too.
Light.
I have
Ads or
Anywhere.
anywhere?
On your
I have the banner and some battery-powered LED lights and all of the stuff that goes with that. And I have a Board of Trustees meeting in SeaTac that day and night. So I won't be able to be here, but I can certainly pass along to anyone who wants to be all of the logistics.
Thank you. We'll take you up on that.
Who's all going to be?
Who's going to be in the parade with us? Well, raise that hand high.
Oh, yeah.
So it's
Hey, where's your hand?
You still have
It's
to
this
hold.
Thursday
I
night.
shouldn't be out there.
No, I'm going to. Am I allowed to bring my kids?
Oh, yeah, everybody.
Of course.
Bring everybody.
We have to vote on her kids. I think they should come with you.
So Rose, what all do you have going on Thursday? There's actually a committee for this whole thing now.
Yeah. Prestige is donating all the cookies. We've got awards coming for the best use of music lights and Santa's Choice. Santa Claus will be there. And we're having photographs taken, so if you've got kids, bring them down. They get free photos with Santa. Yeah, it's going to be fun. We have a marching band coming, a small brass band.
Fine.
Yeah, so we have about 16 entries so far.
16.
The applications are still coming in, so.
How many saw the Rhinestone Cowboy?
Oh, I've seen that movie. Are you talking about the, yeah,
Yeah, Robert Redford.
absolutely.
We have horses.
They're lighted up horses?
They have to be lit.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome.
What's a parade without horses?
What time do we get together? What time is the?
5:30.
5:30 down at 21st and Main Street.
Okay.
And Public Works personnel will be down there to line everybody up and get everybody in order.
Paige should be, you're invited to join us. Yeah.
And you're invited to get everybody from the school involved as well. There's still time.
Yeah, even though the application deadline was today at 5, we're still going to
Well,
take
if they walk
applications.
with
up
us,
until the event.
can they come in on our application?
Who?
Paige and all her friends.
Oh,
Let them be another entry. Add to more entries.
High school entry would be best.
That's it.
Or a club from the high school.
I would suggest that Paige should be welcome, but if it
There's an
needs to be
application in the
separate,
lobby.
it should be separate.
Yes, we can walk right
Shame,
behind us.
shame a bunch of band members into coming in and being in it. They don't necessarily need the instructor's permission. They could just go as a group. So Rose, you've got a lot of stuff lined up. Santa will be there.
Yes.
Awesome.
Rose, where do we get the application?
It's online.
On the table or it's on the website.
Oh, it's on the table? Okay.
Hot cider, hot
I'll
chocolate,
get it.
chocolate chip cookies.
I'm not sure what kind of cookies, but there will be.
I'm sorry?
There will be cookies there, and there's coffee and cocoa and candy canes, of course, for the kids, and
Okay, so Thursday. Next Tuesday, just a reminder, Burlington Northern, 5:30 at the high school in the auditorium. We do have a few folks that are going to be up on the dais along with yourselves. I believe we've got a member of the city of Camas, the mayor from Woodland, We have a director from the school board. Rose, is that everybody that we've got up
I don't have my
there?
list in front of me, but there's probably
So-
4 or 5 others.
Sorry, is it going to be recorded?
I don't know what capabilities they've got up there.
I'm working on it.
Good. Very important, I think. Have it documented.
And it might just be an audio recording.
Yep. Other than that, unless there is any major objection from the council, I think from a staff level, we still have nothing that is pressing for the month of December,
Well,
other than
can I-
next Tuesday's meeting.
Can I address that?
Sure.
And I apologize, I'm going to be out of town on Tuesday on City of Vancouver business in Seattle, so I won't be able to attend the meeting, even though I'm tasked with writing this resolution. But I wondered whether there is some interest in having a meeting after that meeting, following Monday, may say, and to consider a resolution on that matter.
Oh, you won't be there Tuesday.
So I won't be there Tuesday, but I can listen to the tape and incorporate that into the draft.
Is there a timeline on the resolution?
No.
Is there any reason?
Well, we probably have until into January with FSEC and all that, the process there.
I'd prefer we do it in January.
Okay, that's fine.
I know,
Paige.
I know I haven't quite finished yet, but it's kind of late, and I have a somewhat severe concussion.
Oh,
I was wondering if I could be excused for the evening.
Absolutely.
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 Goodness.
I'm sure we've made your concussion worse. I'm sure we've made your concussion worse.
That was not as calculus.
Not a worry. Thank you.
Feel better soon.
So other than that, any objections if we cancel the rest of your meetings for this month, other than next Tuesday's workshop? Okay, consider that done. We'll get the proper notifications out. And again, if something comes up in the meantime that can't wait, we'll call it as a special meeting and move forward appropriately. Council members, Brent?
Nothing else.
Michelle?
Nothing.
Paul?
You just raised an interesting question for me. Finance Committee needs to be able to approve the AP.
They do need to continue meeting.
Yes, yes, and every week. And I don't know what Councilman Freeman's plans for the holidays are, or
I'll be around.
You'll be here. I'll be here. I'm sorry.
Should be home.
Sing it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that if somebody was going to be absent, that we needed to temporarily fill the slot. But if everyone is going to be here, that's not a problem.
So every week, the city hall's not going to be closed for a large period of time.
The
gonna be
holidays
every-
themselves, and that's it.
So they're going to come out on those, Christmas is on a Thursday, right? So.
Yes.
What day will the,
I can send an
Checks
email
and-
to let you guys know what the AP plans are. We were not going to run any this week to make sure that we meet the 30-day requirement to have the payables before the full council. So I'll have Jessica send you guys an email with the schedule so that you know when there will be new ones coming out.
okay.
Anything else, Paul?
Oh, no, that's all. Thanks.
Joyce?
I want to say very quick, I walked the proposed trail for the Port of Kaminista-Washougal the other day. It is going to be very exciting, and when we start seeing that happen, it's going to change everything around here. It's a marvelous project that's happening at the port.
Very exciting.
Jennifer?
Yep. Since this is our last meeting of the year, I just want to say Merry Christmas to all of you.
Thanks to you, too.
David?
Well, I'd like to echo that Merry Christmas, and I would note that although we have some knockdown, drag-out arguments here, at least we don't get concussions.
Right.
At least, not that I'm aware of, anyway.
Night's not over.
Three other
Meet you in the
things.
alley.
One of them is that it's an interesting observation you gave me tonight about not being in the mainstream. I'm not too worried about that because I think the voters will determine who's in the mainstream on any issue. As two previous council members,
I apologize for that. That was a little brusque, but I've studied the issue a lot.
It's okay, I've got thick skin, and besides, I know who my friends are. They're all up here. But two previous council members of significant tenure found out to their surprise in 2011 when spending became an issue, who was in the mainstream and what the mainstream is in Washougal. Monday, December the 15th at noon at Washougal Police Department Station is the next public safety meeting. And I wanted to thank my council colleagues for hearing my concerns tonight. I got one through. 1 out of 6 ain't bad. That's all I have, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Joe?
Well, I want to give a report on Run for the Hungry that was done on Thanksgiving morning, and what great outcome it was. There was over 1,000 participants. That includes volunteers, runners, and walkers, which I didn't get to do because I was in California, running and walking after my 14-month-old granddaughter. $17,000 was collected, and 1.5 tons of food was collected. That food is going to be shared. Gateway Church is going to share those proceeds with Bethel Community Church and River Rock Church, because they're very, all three churches are very active with very large, what do you call that?
Congregations?
Closets, pantries. Yeah, well known for their pantries. So that's exciting that Gateway's not hogging it all. They don't even have room to store it all. So they're going to be sharing that. So we recognize this has become a community event. So next Thanksgiving, if you're in town, you plan for that little turkey to get up early, get that little girl in there, be roasting, and get down there and do the Run for the Hungry. Another way to give back to our folks in town. That's all. Thank you.
Okay. With that, I would entertain a motion for adjournment. We are adjourned.